Hi, Philip from Scott Bader. I'm going to show you how to mix resin and top coat correctly by using a scale. For demonstrative purposes today, I'm using a glass jar which has the resin required. Pouring this into the bucket, I have 800 grams here. Adding the correct amount of catalyst is important. In summer we recommend going no lower than 1%, and in winter no higher than 2.5 to 3%. This will affect the gel time and the cure of the product being mixed. Today we're going with 2% because the weather's nice and warm and not too cold. It's important not to mix it too quickly with a hand draw or too short in time, as in 20 or 30 seconds. We like to say 30 to 60 seconds is perfect for mixing this by hand. As one mixes it, it does change color slightly, from a pink color to a browner color. Catalyzed resin is now poured into a paint tray. A lot of contractors use this. It makes their life a lot easier. We start off with a long hair fluffy roller. This is a mohair roller used in the paint industry. This helps to get the resin onto the pool surface in very quick time. Here we're using a fiberglass molding as our pool surface. And we're literally painting the resin onto the surface. This wets it, and at the same time it absorbs slightly into the cementitious lining of the pool. The chop strand mat has a fluffy side on the one side and a shiny side on the other. We put the fluffy side down first. By putting sufficient resin down, it wets the fiberglass out onto the pool surface. We want to try and wet as much fiberglass as possible without adding too much. Slowly the resin wicks and saturates the fiberglass with time. Once we've got as much down, and we think it's pretty well saturated, we use an aluminium roller. This aluminium roller gets all the air out of the laminate. Now I'm putting a second layer down. Now we're moving on to the sanding stage. It's important to sand any of the high spots quite flat in order not to have any air bubbles later on in the laminate. So what we're going to do, we're going to lightly sand. I've got about 150 grit sandpaper here, and we're just lightly sanding just the top surface of the laminate. This will also help give it a much smoother finish when the top coat is applied. Now that we've finished sanding, we're just going to give it a styrene wipe. What we recommend is taking a cloth, wetting it in the styrene, and just wiping it. This degreases any impurities off the surface. For the sake of this video, we're using top coat that has been decanted into glass bottles. Now we're adding the catalyst to the top coat. So if we've got, for argument's sake, 500 grams there, and we want to go 2% catalyst, I usually work it out with 10% and then 10%, which is 1% plus 1% is 2%. 500 grams, 10% is 50 grams. 10% of 50 grams is 5 grams. That is equal to 1% of the original 500. Times by 2 is 10. 10 mils of catalyst. Alternatively, you can use a calculator on your modern cell phone. 500 grams times by 2% will give you 10 mils. Again, we mix for minimum 60 seconds to ensure that it's mixed thoroughly. Using a short bristled roller now. We wet it out thoroughly and we start painting it on. Almost as easy as painting onto the wall. However, we want this at a certain thickness of a minimum of 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter thickness. Too thick causes problems such as pinholes when drying, when curing, and too thin means it doesn't cure sufficiently. Be sure to cover any runs because you only have one chance. Once this is cured and set, to go back and put another coat on will cause other problems. So we recommend you put it on one shot, as you've seen me do it here, at the correct thickness. There you have it. There's not much to it. Obviously, we've worked with a small mold surface here, and working with the whole swimming pool will take a lot longer with a bigger team. But the basics are fundamental. We've covered health and safety. We've covered preparing the surface, laminating, 2 layers, and then finishing off with the top coat. Catalyst ratios are important with the mass of the product being applied. In cleaning up, some contractors prefer to just throw away their brushes and rollers because it takes a lot of acetone, which is not good for the environment, to clean them up. The choice is yours.